right, in the home stretch now. So I've invited back to the stage Jason Henrichs and John Schulte, and we're going to have Keith Armstrong from Abe AI join us too. So we're going to stay on this theme of collaboration. And John had so many good things to say in the panel. We're going to dive just a little bit more before we get into the last part of the day. So without further ado, please welcome our Fireside Chat participants here. Thank you.
So thank you both for rejoining and joining. This was a bit of an audible because earlier today, this topic of collaboration kept coming up. And people were asking, it's like, yeah, but how do you really do it? We're talking a lot of the theory and some concepts, but how do you really do it? Well, here are two groups that are really doing it. You're neck deep in the midst of partnership. Keith, you want to give us like the 30 seconds elevator pitch on what Abe AI is?
I'd love to. So Abe AI, we make it really easy for banks to support and engage customers on conversational interfaces such as Facebook Messenger, Google Home, and Amazon Alexa.
So, John, you have a very long history. I'd love if you could tell just how far that history goes back to looking at alternative vendors within the technology space that you can leverage. And would love to hear how your learning has progressed when you look out at your world of potential partners. How do you screen for that, other than the what looks to be the sexiest technology or the spec fit? How do you actually really screen for what's going to be successful?
Well, so they were on our radar because of their focus on financial health. So that was part of that early dating process that really resonated and built the relationship where we took it to the next step. Said we've actually got an opportunity to really talk. So it was on my one of my strategic objectives was engaging customers with financial health. We already have existing PFM solutions with partners like MX, and another piece of that really helped take this to the next level was knowing the APIs that I had available to me from MX and really engaging them, say, hey, can we leverage that? And can we take that conversational interface and leverage that to engage on financial health? But I still go back to our discussions about financial health and how that was a common vision of ours with both your company and with our focus.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that first conversation, John, and over the phone, I was like, man, this is the kind of individual that gets it. And I was really excited to potentially work with John, and that was just one of the key things that stuck out for us. And then we started having more of these progressive conversations with the existing vendors he worked with, MX and Q2, to really put a game plan in place. Before we went through all of the due diligence, we said, is this even possible? And we were able to complement and expand an existing investment in the Money Desktop solution. And so it was quite frankly pretty easy to work with you.
So did you share that same core value with MX and Q2 when you were selecting? Like, can you actually say, if we were to go lowest common denominator, the group of people, it's not just about the APIs being able to talk to each other, but our core values talk to each other?
That was huge. I mean, because that means I need to partner with someone that has that same strategic alignment with what they're building. So having that match right away, that cleared the hurdle, and then we could start talking about technical things and how do we make this work, and engaging with MX and Q2 and trying to architect the solution.
And how has that played out in terms of its benefit? Like, has it been that the thing that gets you over like the middle of the night worries or the risk that John Epperson, and how's it played out for you knowing that you share that same core value?
Well, I think it's a lot of trust, right? And going into this partnership, I'm viewing it, and I know John is as well, as very adaptive. And as we roll this out to customers and we learn, we're able to iterate and continually improve the product, and particularly with the type of technology we're using with natural language processing and advanced financial machine learning algorithms to make predictions about what people will do in their day-to-day financial lives. We're just getting all of this new information to roll out new things, and John and his team will be part of that collaborative process and partnership to continue to create a great product.
That philosophical alignment is important because this solution is rather unique in the sense that there is really no end date, because this solution is always in listening mode. It's always going to be adapting. We're going to be learning from what our customers are telling us, what they want to use it for. But that common overriding theme of we're driving financial health advice through this platform. It was just the foundation of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the unique things about conversational interfaces, that customers are telling you exactly what's on their mind. What is the financial stress that they're carrying? What is keeping them up at night? You're not having to guess by looking at an app and seeing where they're clicking. They're literally telling you, what they want to be able to use the technology for. And so we can provide, really unique and creative solutions to support the day-to-day financial management of an individual.
So one of the key breakthrough moments we had too that really pushed this thing on the fast track was when we were whiteboarding, when we were talking about feasibility and scoping this thing out, was the idea that we already have an API that can deliver all this stuff, and that you guys could easily tap into that, and that we can, we're not really building something from the ground up. You're taking your experience with these conversational interfaces, but layering it on an existing data structure that can deliver very unique things through this experience that no other bank that I've seen is able to offer.
Was that part of your selection criteria, someone who had a tech stack with an API and already had?
Yeah, so people ask, like, what kind of customers are you going after? How are you segmenting the market? And for me, it's more of, what type of innovation autonomy does the institution have? And are they genuinely focused on digital? Do they have the sort of top-down buy-in, demonstrating that they're serious about this? And clearly, John had that. And so it was just, kind of really simple, to go ahead and get started working with them on that stuff.
So how did you get started? Did you guys go through a proof of concept? You're kind of doing that. What is the gating process, and how are you measuring progress against it?
So one of the nice things that happened, and it's another reason why we don't dump a huge due diligence checklist on these guys. We had very early on discussions about whiteboarding this, and we were able to actually architect a lot of the risk outside of the solution. So one of our objectives was to try to minimize, we didn't want them to have housing, online banking credentials or other sensitive things. And the way we architected with other APIs and other vendors, it became sort of a pass-through process where you guys are not even maintaining that. So that changes the level of due diligence that we have to do, or the level of protections we need to work and develop together.
Absolutely. I think, John Epperson, who was on stage earlier, said, make risks management and compliance your competitive advantage. And we were able to bring all parties to the table and design a solution where we weren't carrying a lot of the risk, and having to go through that really thorough due diligence process. Because, correct me if I'm wrong here, but this was a pretty low risk deployment in your opinion there. So
Still put you through a lot of due diligence. But yeah, it's just been a really great story for us. One of the ones that we're really enjoying and excited about.
Where did risk fit into your process? When did they come in? Were they the ones who helped say, here are the things inbounds, out of bounds? If you do this, it's going to increase scrutiny?
It was early in the discussions. We sat down and really talked about information security is a high one. Compliance risk wasn't necessarily so much because it's a non-transactional capabilities today. I think that at the point where we do layer into potentially transactional capabilities to this interface, that's going to change the dynamic a little bit. It's going to increase the amount of protections we're going to have to put in place. We're going to have to rethink some things. Right now we're using pin-based controls on the voice devices like Alexa and Google Home, but is that enough if we're talking about money movement? Right. Certainly money movement within Mercantile is a different even risk profile than external money movement if we're enabling it to do things like P2P transactions down the road. So every step forward might require an additional level of discussion, architecting, risk management, and we'll bring all the people to the table to have those discussions like we did originally.
But I love, going back to the prior panel, if you are undertaking that expense, it is based on something that says there was utility in working with Abe AI in what we're doing. Let's go undertake this greater risk, add in transactional, add expense into it, but you've already realized value.
Yeah. And another unique thing that we've done, and this was one of the first, really the first time we've actually done this with a vendor, is we were really trying to build a repeatable model that other banks that use MX and Q2, just like us, that we network with, I started engaging with them early on too to say, hey, if we're building this, would you guys be interested in following this path?
That was...
and then we were able to talk about, hey, if that happens and we're taking the risk up front, how does Mercantile benefit from that initial investment of cost? And we were able to creatively architect a reward system for us to potentially get some, if not all, of our development costs back, the more successful you guys are.
Yeah, for us, that was just absolutely amazing as, early stage startups that is looking for, early adopting customers, and to have an evangelist like John to walk me into conversations with friendly institutions that he has who have the same shared architecture. It allows us to deploy the solution incredibly fast and get other banks to market. So it's been wildly pleasant for me on our end, and as John said, we've worked it out to where he's compensated financially over the long term for doing that for us. And I think that's you talk about bringing sweat equity to the relationship. That is exactly what I, as an early stage startup, am looking for right now, is people who can make very warm introductions to potential new prospects for us.
But it's also a great example of business model innovation in your own approach, in your own process. Granted, it's an internal business model. So is your CFO going to let you keep the development dollars and say, hey, John gets to go use those to play some other bets if he wants to now?
I could recoup them. Yeah, that is definitely a conversation I probably will have. That's how we do it. Otherwise, I got to come up with money for every new thing. If we can take advantage of opportunities like this where we're building off existing solutions that we've already invested in, taking a chance with you guys, but also maybe getting rewarded the more successful this is, then I can go back and reinvest that somewhere else, or in making the solution the next level better. So.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. All right, so with the remaining time, now that you're not quite through the partnering process, but you're at least neck deep into it, if you look back and you look internally and say, I wish we had known X, or we had better prepared ourselves in Y way, what would you have done differently that would have made this even more successful?
I think we would have started working on the marketing angles sooner and collaborating more on that, because now it's crunch time. We're in the final stages of testing, but we've got a lot of work to do around crafting the value proposition, branding it, and getting collateral materials and all kinds of things, and developing those strategies. They did do a great job of giving us a very good outline of things that we could do, but I was late to getting started on that because we were so focused on the operational testing.
And so things like doing message testing and value proposition with customers, getting some data actually built around it, like here's the use case, here's the email subject line that's going to resonate.
Yeah, the messaging, both the what we're going to say, but also the channels that we're going to deliver that, and how we're going to get that across to the right audience to get the outcome we want.
Yeah, and I would echo the same thing. Not only going B2B, making the sale to John from B2B, then B2C here and getting it deployed out to his customers, but also supporting how John goes about generating the internal buy-in and educating the staff on how to talk about it. So when someone does walk into the branch and they see the Google Home or Amazon Alexa there, and someone says, "What is this thing? What are you guys doing here?" Making sure the front end tellers are educated about how to talk about that, and driving future adoption to these digital channels is something that we're thinking about, and is a fun challenge and opportunity. But definitely generating the internal buy-in and supporting the promotion, because ultimately what we're trying to do is move a business metric for John here and showing increased adoption and engagement of his PFM solution. And so that is paramount to what we're trying to do, and making sure that the marketing to create awareness among his customer base is correct, and that we do move that true business needle.
Have you thought about having an Alexa out right there, and the teller can ask, Alexa, how to sell this to my customer?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're giving, as part of our rollout, we're doing we do an employee training day on Columbus Day every year. We close the bank and get everybody together and do training. One of the big things, we're going to be giving away a ton of these devices and trying to get our employees engaged throughout the bank and testing and getting excited about this, because the more excited I can get our employees about it, the more excitement we can build with our customers. And that's really, the measurement is truly increasing engagement of financial health in the data and the rich opportunities that brings from a marketing standpoint. But there's no direct financial ROI to this. It is about a better customer experience, increasing engagement, and knowing that there's outcomes, good outcomes for the bank if we can continue to deliver on that.
That's great. Any parting shots for us?
If you're a bank out here, talk to them so that we can get the more kickbacks.
John's going to get a cheaper invoice next month if you do, so please come talk to us.
Well, thank you for coming out again and for joining us on stage last minute and being so candid about what the experience has been like. I think
Pleasure.
one of the things I appreciate most about BBVA's open talent and their approach to this is it really is pushing the industry forward with the kinds of conversations. You know, there are very few institutions who say, hey, these are a carefully curated set of startups. Let's show them to the world that we think they're some of the best and brightest, in the same way that you're saying, hey, we really want to work with them. You should too. That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks.